I remember the moment my body finally understood what rest felt like again, even though my mind had forgotten it long ago. It didn't arrive with drama or collapse. There were no tears, no phone calls, no sudden vows to change everything. It came quietly, the way night replaces evening without asking permission, the way you only notice once the sky has already gone dark. For years, my life had been loud in ways I no longer questioned. I woke before my alarm because anxiety never slept. I reached for my phone before my feet touched the floor, scrolling through messages and headlines that instantly reminded me how much the world expected from me. Coffee became a tool instead of a pleasure. Meals were rushed. Silence felt suspicious, like something was wrong if nothing demanded my attention. Days blurred together. Work filled my mind even when I wasn't working. I carried conversations with people who weren't there, replaying words, imagining better responses, worrying about reactions that might never come. By night, my body felt exhausted, but my thoughts stayed sharp and restless, pacing like an animal that couldn't lie down. Sleep used to feel like another task I was failing at. I would lie in bed staring into the dark, counting hours instead of sheep, calculating how tired I would be the next day if I didn't fall asleep soon. The pressure to rest made rest impossible. So I filled the quiet with noise. A television murmuring half-understood dialogue. Podcasts I didn't follow. Music that was too busy, too demanding. Anything to drown out my own thoughts. Even then, sleep came in fragments. I woke often, heart racing, unsure why. Sometimes from dreams I couldn't remember, sometimes from nothing at all. Morning always arrived too quickly, dragging me back into a cycle that felt endless. One night, after a day that had taken more than it gave, I turned everything off. Not because I was disciplined or mindful, but because I was too tired to keep choosing distraction. The room felt unfamiliar without its usual noise. I could hear the faint hum of electricity in the walls, the distant city breathing outside my window. My own breathing sounded tight, shallow, like I was bracing for impact. I reached for my phone one last time, not to scroll, but to find something gentle. I didn't know what I was searching for. I just knew I needed the edges of my thoughts to soften. When the sound began, it felt like a slow exhale I hadn't realized I was holding. There was no melody to follow, no lyrics to interpret. Just a steady presence, unfolding patiently, like a horizon that didn't move no matter how long you stared at it. I lay still, waiting for my mind to interrupt, for my thoughts to grab onto something sharp. They tried. They always did. But the sound gave them nowhere to land. My shoulders released their tension before I noticed they had been clenched. My jaw loosened. The tight space behind my eyes softened. I wasn't asleep yet, but I wasn't fully awake either. I hovered in a quiet place between, one I hadn't visited since childhood afternoons spent drifting in and out of naps, safe and unhurried. Memories surfaced gently, without urgency. Sitting on cool grass while summer stretched endlessly. Falling asleep in the back seat of a car while streetlights passed like slow stars. Moments when time didn't feel like something chasing me. The sound didn't respond to my memories. It didn't rise or fall to meet them. It simply continued, steady and indifferent in the kindest way. Nothing was asking me to engage. Nothing needed fixing. For the first time in a long while, I didn't need to be productive, interesting, or strong. Sleep arrived without announcement. Not the anxious slipping away I was used to, but a deep, quiet descent, like sinking into warm water and trusting it to hold you. When I woke, light filtered through the curtains in a way that felt unfamiliar. My body felt heavy, but not weighed down. Settled. I checked the clock, expecting disappointment. Instead, the night had passed completely.
No walking.
No racing heart.
No fractured dreams.
I lay there listening to the morning sounds of the city waking up and realized something had shifted. My mind wasn't racing to catch up. There was no immediate sense of urgency. Just space. That night became the beginning of a small ritual. I returned to that sound again, sometimes for sleep, sometimes just to sit quietly as evening folded into night. I played it while rain tapped against the window, while the sky dimmed from blue to black, while I lay on the floor doing absolutely nothing, something that once felt impossible. Over time, the music taught my body what calm felt like again. I noticed how tense I lived the rest of my life, how often I held my breath without realizing it, how rarely I allowed moments to exist without filling them. The world outside didn't slow down. Work still demanded attention. News still shouted. People still expected answers quickly. But inside, something loosened. The constant background tension I had mistaken for normal began to fade. Sleep grew deeper. Dreams returned, slow and drifting, fading gently with the morning instead of jolting me awake. Days felt longer, not because they were filled with more activity, but because I wasn't rushing through them. There were still nights when anxiety showed up uninvited. It whispered familiar worries about the future, about mistakes, about things beyond my control. But now, when I lay down and let the sound surround me, those worries felt smaller. Not gone, but distant, like voices through a wall. I began to understand that rest isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of safety. The feeling that, for this moment, you don't need to defend yourself against the world. Sometimes, as the sound played, I imagined others listening too, in different cities, different time zones. Someone lying awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Someone sitting alone after a long shift, too tired to think. Someone overwhelmed by a life that never seemed to pause. The idea that we could all be resting together, quietly and separately, felt comforting. The sound followed me into more parts of my life. Into mornings when I needed a softer start. Into afternoons when my thoughts felt scattered. Into moments when I simply needed to breathe. I stopped seeing rest as a reward and began seeing it as a necessity. Something essential, like water or light. Something I had been denying myself without realizing it. Now, when night arrives and the world begins to soften, I let the sound play. I let my thoughts come and go without chasing them. I let my breathing find its own rhythm. I let myself be held by quiet instead of fearing it. And in that stillness, I remember something simple and true. I am allowed to rest. I always was.